I'll begin with my fellow Ghanaian, Aisha Ayensu. Aisha is the founder and creative director of luxury fashion label Christy Brown. Christy Brown is a visionary in the industry. Aisha's expertise and influence have earned her recognition from prestigious media outlets and organizations worldwide, including the BBC, Vogue, CNN, among others. Christy Brown is currently selling at Selfridges, adding to her remarkably great journey. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Aisha Ayensu. Next is Audu Mekori. Audu Mekori is a renowned media entrepreneur, entertainment lawyer, and social activist. He's the founder and executive vice chairman of Chocolate City Group, one of our entertainment companies. As a highly sought-after speaker, Audu has shared his insights at renowned conferences and educational institutions such as the Pan-African University, MIT, Harvard University, University of Michigan, Georgetown University, and Oxford University. With a round of applause, please welcome Audu Mekori. Marlene Ngoyi is the CEO of Fund for Export Development in Africa, also known as FEDA. FEDA is a subsidiary of Afri-Exim Bank. FEDA is a $670 million private equity firm providing capital to companies engaged in intra-African trade, industrialization, and value-added exports from Africa to the rest of the world. Marlene previously served as the CEO of several financial institutions. She holds an MBA from Harvard Business School. Please welcome Marlene Ngoyi. Next on the panel is the founder and CEO of Ebony Live Group, which includes Ebony Live Media, Ebony Live Creative Academy, and Ebony Live Place, Nigeria's first luxury boutique lifestyle and entertainment resort. She's been described by Forbes as Africa's most successful woman, and I'm talking about no other but Mo Abudu. Mo Abudu's recent success is the launch of Blood Sisters, Netflix's first original Nigerian series. The show made the Netflix Global Top 10 list with over 11 million hours viewed. She deserves a bigger round of applause for that. Among her tall list of achievements, Mo is an executive fellow of the Hutchins Center for African American Research at Harvard University. Oh, she's already seated. And last, but certainly not the least on our panel this afternoon, is Shola Sunny. Shola is Netflix's Director of Public Policy in Sub-Saharan Africa. She's a seasoned advocacy professional and an emerging markets digital policy specialist. Before joining Netflix, Shola was Director of Public Policy at MasterCard, where she led several innovations, including the establishment of strategic partnerships on cybersecurity within the digital financial ecosystem. Please welcome the one and only Shola Sunny. Shola, I think you can take everything. Thank you very much. And once again, we are very happy to have all of you here in the hall to begin this conversation, which is very critical for the industry we find ourselves in, the creative industries. And again, the theme is unleashing the potential of Africa's creative economy for shared prosperity. And of course, when you talk about prosperity, you're talking not just about successes and achievements, but you're talking money as well. And that is why I'm coming straight to the money woman on the panel this afternoon, Marlene. You heard those staggering statistics from the World Bank and UNESCO. And we keep wondering, how do we get the creative industries to come together with the financial institutions like FEDA, for instance, to access capital? In your experience as a finance person, is it easy for people in the creative industry to access finance easily?
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on this panel. I'm very glad to be with very distinguished co-panelists. I think the first thing that we need to start by saying is to say the creative industry, it's a huge industry around the world. This is an industry that's that represents more than $1 trillion. That's very important to understand that. I was just speaking with a friend earlier, and I was saying the second or first, depending on the day of the week, richest man in the world, Bernard Arnault from France. What does he sell? He sells the made in France, and that's one of the richest men in the world. So it's important to understand that it's a business that represents a huge pan of the economy. It's important to understand that that's also a business that actually creates a lot of employment for the youth, and so it's a very important part of the economy in general. Now, I think when it comes to the financing, it is true that historically, particularly in Africa, the creative industry has been dependent a lot on development type of money given by foreign governments, and it hasn't been sufficient to explore all of the opportunities that exist in film, in music, in fashion, in video gaming, if you want to talk about technology, in spectacles, in the art. It hasn't been sufficient. That's something that Afrixim has realized. It's probably one of the first development bank that is making a very loud commitment to the creative industry with very substantial numbers. A couple of years ago, $500 million were announced to support the creative industry. This has been doubled, where Afrixim is pledging $1 billion towards the creative industry. And the idea for us is to say, let's tap into this market, let's produce locally with quality content, let's partner on the distribution, let's have our own digital distribution platform, and let's consume it as Africans, first of all, from one country to the next, and let's export it to the rest of the world. And we're starting to see that there's a big taste for it. And what we want to do is capitalize on that and scale it and make it more widespread. So at FEDA, I'm very, very glad that His Excellency Professor Orama asked us to say, Afrixim is gonna do the debt type of products. FEDA, you should come in as an equity partners. You should be working on creating the right vehicle with the right parties to get this going. So I'm pretty sure that in a couple of months we'll be making some very big, concrete announcements on that front.
That's fantastic. $1 billion. That's pretty huge. And more, before I come to your substantial question, I mean, this is big for the creative industries. How does that make you feel for someone who's spearheading so much in the industry?
I'm excited, and first of all, good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to be here as part of this panel today. Hearing those numbers is exciting, because the only way that we're going to break through in that sector is with that amount of, we need to invest in the sector. We keep playing around, and we're literally just at the tip of the iceberg, and there is so much potential within our industry, but we have to make the necessary investment. And investment means collaboration. It means capacity building. It means setting up those treaties. It means reaching out to the world and saying, come and work with us. Imagine if we have an African blockbuster that has blockbuster stars in it. It's about collaboration. Right. And we can do that because we're going to invest in them. We're going to pay them to be in those projects that we're doing. But you know what the difference is? We own those projects. We have hired them to be in it because they are global stars. And at the right price, you can hire anybody. Anybody's for sale in this business. Right. You just have to be able to pay for them. And at the end of the day, they're the ones that pull in the box office numbers. They're the ones that get you those numbers, as I'm sure Shola would say when it comes to streaming. Mm-hmm. You need the stars. But then side by side, we also have our stars on the continent as well. So it's really about ensuring that that ecosystem is a truly international one that we all have access to. And we need to be able to go in there and say, listen, work with us. Let's, so that $1 billion, let's put it to some good use.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now, you mentioned collaborations, and you have had some number of firsts in your pocket. You've had breakthroughs with Ebony Live. Tell us about how innovation and collaboration assisted you to do all of these things. How did you make it with collaborations and innovations?
Well, we started Ebony Life as a linear TV channel in 2012, and at the time, it was the right thing to do. But then we found that over a 5-year period, linear TV, I think most people watch linear TV now for sports or for news. That's the reality. So when it comes to innovation, we saw ahead of the curve and we realized that we needed to start playing in a different field. So we started reaching out to international organizations like Sony and Disney, and of course Netflix is our first major partner, Will Packer, Will Smith, AMC, the BBC. I mean, over the last 8-9 years, we have managed to secure collaborations and co-production deals with all the companies that I have mentioned. We've only been able to do that because we have presented to them stories that we believe are authentic, stories that they believe are local for global. I mean, I've defined storytelling in 2 ways. There's a local for local story, which is very much for a local audience, and there's nothing wrong in playing in that bubble, but there's also a local for global stories. And for example, Professor Orama was talking about Pan-Africanism yesterday, and we spoke about one of the great masters of that from Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah. And when you have someone like that, whose story has never been told, so as a continent, we have remained silent. Nobody really knows who we are. And even the American studios, the stories that they tend to explore about Africa, more or less is about the slave trade. I mean, I'm like, when are you guys going to just wake up and realize that there was life before the slave trade and there was life after the slave trade, and even during? So we have a rich history of stories that we haven't even began to delve into. The first one that we can say that America has tried to do is Woman King, and it was done as an American production. But that could easily have been a production that was financed by you. And the box office return on that would be ours. And that's what we need to start doing, is we have to say to ourselves, we can buy any star in the world at the right price. And we do the numbers, and we know that, okay, this is likely to be our return on investment. So we can play in the major league. Until we do that, we're just basically we're not there.
Yeah, I can feel the passion in your voice.
Thank you.
Right. Audu, you're the music man here. And if you talk about the creative industry, the one sector that is making all the waves is music. I mean, we just saw Burna Boy at the Champions League opening, and what a remarkable performance he put up. Tell us the current state of the music industry now, of Africa. Where are we? Are we there? Are we massaging it? Are we pretending to be there? Or are we really, really there?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you guys doing? Are we okay? You guys okay? So we're music, so we like excitement. We like so can we get some more? How is everybody doing? How are you guys doing?
Yeah, good.
So, and that is what music does. Music invokes a passion. It talks to you, whether it's English, Spanish, Yoruba. You're listening to this music. When you hear songs like Calm Down by Rema, it is the highest selling Afrobeat song till date.
Oh, wow.
And this is, it's about, they're doing probably, you can clap. It's about $600 million. Interestingly, last year, we had a song in Chocolate City called Love One Tintin. I'm sure you probably know the song. That was before that, the highest selling Afrobeat song. So Afrobeat is beating its records every single second. And the reason why is that we have a huge diaspora. We have Africans from around the world. And more importantly, Africans and black people are drawn by something called the drum. There's just something about the drum. Like, you don't need to explain it. It just resonates. And I think that we've never been in a position like this where you walk into a place. I remember many years ago when I used to travel abroad and I go to the airport, they'll say, what brings you to London? I'll be like, oh, I'm a lawyer. They're like, oh, okay. What case are you coming for? And then it changed about 7 years ago when I say, in music, oh, do you know Two-Face? Or do you know things like that? And that's what it's done. I was on a panel in Qatar at Doha Forum, I think last year. And there was an investment panel that was talking about how African music has opened more room for African investments in other businesses. Because think about it, it's about cultural interpretation and interpolation, right? So the reason why America is so prominent is they sold themselves through media, through their music, through their fashion, through their clothes. So I think in a sense, music has the elements that put visuals, they put fashion. They talk about the times. In fact, it's a tool for promoting, you know, a whole agenda. So I think it's a great time. My only hang up about it is really around how we control the music itself. We were in a conversation yesterday talking about how 70% of the streams of African music actually comes from the UK and the US. So it's not been consumed here. The 600 million streams you're talking about, less than 100 million streams are from Africa. That's a problem. Secondly, when you're doing deals, in 2019, we did a deal with Warner Music. It's a global deal. And what we had to do was basically bring our catalog and then work with them to get these songs global. So that's a place of collaboration. But we need to understand that intellectual property is the very essence of nothing, you're done nothing. So it's really critical that we protect our IP. And that is where the funding comes into play, because really, with the right budget, we have the expertise locally here. Right. Remember that it's Africans that are promoting our music globally, not Europeans or any other culture. Right. So it behooves on us to create platforms that we can monetize, that we can own, so that our children's children will own that music. Right. Because when you think about it, Burna's music might be owned by an international company somewhere else. Yeah. And so in 70 years' time, when the kids are looking for, I don't know, some kind of cultural connection with their IP, it belongs to who? A foreign company. Right. So I think that is critical. But having said that, I think the role, and I'm glad that Feda is here, I was having a talk with the CEO earlier, is that we need to also build local streaming platforms that we control, we own, we can license, but make sure that we retain the ownership, because ownership is everything when it comes to intellectual property.
All right, I'll move to Aisha in a bit, but you talked about something really critical, about how Rema's music, Countdown, has 600 million. That's great, that's colossal. Now, if you compare the other African countries with what Nigeria is doing, and I'm going to focus on my country, Ghana, because we have artists who are just as great, but it appears that we have obstacles that Nigeria has tried to overcome, successfully done. What are we not doing right in Ghana from your experience? I mean, the question got you a bit.
Can I talk freely?
Yeah, freely.
So it's a bit like the jollof rice problem, right? I'm just kidding.
He went there.
I'm just kidding. But I think really it is that there are places that breeds the promotion of certain things more than other places. That's just how things are, right? I've spoken to a lot of Ghanaian artists, and by the way, Ghana has some amazing music. It's comparable to any kind of music in the world, all right? Yeah, Ghana is amazing. And the first time I came here in 2012, I was amazed by the production, the choreography, the culture, the depth. I mean, Ghanaians make, I don't know whether it's tree, but what does Sarkodie do?
Tree. Yeah.
That rap is amazing. Yeah. I don't know what he's saying, but then again, I don't know what...
But he just knows Sarkodie is rapping.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
But I think that it's about collaboration still. It is that Wizkid comes to Ghana to record, and he collaborated with VIP. Mm-hmm. Now, it's how do we get VIP to come to Lagos and collaborate with other artists? Because you see, if you're not in a place where it's happening, it's hard for things to actually, get exported. Thankfully, there's digital. Now you can stream, you can blow up over like a video, etc. But I think what is crucial too is that we need to create an ecosystem here. So the last thing I also want to say around the funding is that we need to create ecosystems. And this ecosystem support policy, tax incentives, studio recording facilities for people to make music. And when we connect with, Mo and I have worked on several projects on the film side. She doesn't give me as much money as she should. That's another conversation. But the truth is that we license the music to make the film. Yeah. So you see, they're all kind of correlated, and that's the beauty of the creative industry. So Ghana is way ahead. I have a project I'm working here in Ghana. We're trying to build film studios here in Ghana. Nice. So yeah, Ghana is a great place. All they need to do is make sure that they come to Lagos as we come to Ghana as well. Mm-hmm. Most Ghanaians are afraid of Lagos. Like, have you come to Lagos? I can't go to Lagos. Traffic. Well, you have to go there. So I think it's about collaboration, like you said.
All right, fantastic. Let's move to Aisha now. Aisha is the creative director for Christy Brown.
Yes.
Mo is wearing Christy Brown.
I'm wearing her today.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks.
And Aisha is wearing Christy Brown as well.
Oh.
And she's currently selling at Selfridges in London. That's a big achievement. Check her out on Instagram, Christy Brown GH. Now, we've heard about film and TV, we've heard about music, we've also heard about financing. For fashion, where are we on the globe for Africa?
So thanks for having me. First of all, I want to take a moment to just think about what is happening here at this conference, this gathering. It's bigger than us. I think that we are all experiencing history in the making. And I hope that one day it will be said that they gathered, they spoke, they collaborated, and they acted. And it changed the trajectory of the continent, period. Fashion, my passion. But the industry, there's never been a better time than this. I like to say that, so my brand is 15 years old. I know I don't look it. But it's 15 years old, and at the time that I launched, this is 2008, there was the whole Africa Rising movement, and you felt like, oh yes, this is it, this is the chance, everything is changing, in the continent. And I saw that wave rise, and it kind of dipped, right? So now I believe that we are having the second wave. And it's important that we take advantage of it and position ourselves right. So it's the same with film, it's the same with music, and it's the same with fashion. And you realize that the different disciplines are so interconnected. As music is doing what it's doing, it's affected fashion as well. So now the world is more accepting of African fashion, whereas before it's like, we're not sure we can do this, too much color, too much. But music has broken certain boundaries that has allowed us also enter these doors. That is why as Selfridges, through Lagos Fashion Week, I think Tokumbo is here. It was through Lagos Fashion Week's initiative that certain African brands were having to, are in the store. It's a pop-up for a period. But again, it's right, to see that, okay, are these brands viable? Is there an industry of that they can then actually approach these designers and stock in the store permanently? So it shows you that the world is ready. There's so many initiatives going on. Canex had this program that we were even a part of in Portugal, where brands were sent to showcase in Portugal Fashion Week, after which you went to trade shows like Chernoi. So you can tell that, yes, work is being done to actually move the industry forward. But my thing is, it is great and well and dandy. But the brands who get picked or selected to be on these platforms, they put in the work, yes, they've done what they need to do, like Christy Brown, etc. But how are we making sure that the entire ecosystem is actually working? That we are also equipping the next Christy Browns as well to be able to take advantage of these amazing initiatives. What happens is after you take star 5, and then what?
Yeah.
Right? So I think this is where we are at, and I'm so proud to say that I'm part of the founders of this initiative called Project 55. And how it started was, during the 15th anniversary for Christy Brown, I was thinking, I want to stage an epic fashion show, a fashion show of epic proportions. That's what I told the team. But you know what? I want to be able to give other brands a chance to showcase, even younger brands. But soon it became bigger than myself, because I called on friends in different industries. So we have people in strategy, people in marketing, etc. And we meet once a week, actually. It's a project that is to be launched in October. Now, the idea is that, there's everything happening on the continent when it comes to African fashion and moving these brands along. We have to be able to also incubate our talent in silos. It's kind of like how you have assemblies. Mm-hmm. Not everybody at this stage is ready for the global market. So you can take them to Chernoi all you want and put them in front of all buyers for Selfridges, matches, etc. It still wouldn't fly because they're not ready. Yeah. So Project 55 is meant to incubate the talent here. It's a model that we are testing. Incubate the talent, give them the resources and just the right settings for them to be able to succeed and compete on a global scale. But this is where we are at, and that's the trajectory that the fashion industry on the continent is moving.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, in every home, office, you hear the favorite line, Netflix and chill. Because we all love to Netflix and chill. And we've heard from the three of them who are really playing an active role in the industry, the creative industry. For you, Netflix, sitting there as one in charge of public policy, are you seeing the creative industry taking advantage of platforms like Netflix good enough?
Thank you very much. And can I first just say good afternoon to everybody and how proud I am to be on a panel where one man is outnumbered by
He's the
women
only
all
man.
around. But thank you for that question. I think enough, that's the main, underlying word for me. I'll give you an example. As Netflix, we're present in 190 different countries where people are accessing the service, just like here, hopefully. And we have access to 230 million sets of eyeballs. That's the size of the opportunity. Are creatives or creators or storytellers in Africa taking advantage of this enough? I will tell you they have the potential to. Because for us at Netflix, we know that the talent is not in doubt. The stories are not in doubt. Mo made a very great point. We're only just starting to scratch the surface of the African stories that can be told. There are stories to be told. But there needs to be a combination of factors and circumstances that come together at the same time to enable our storytellers take advantage of that opportunity to reach 190 different countries. And that's just in the case of Netflix. The challenges, the way I see them, are two. There are the structural issues, and this is things like broadband infrastructure, connectivity, the cost of a gigabyte. Those are things that need to fall in place and be accessible, affordable for consumers to be able to subscribe and watch the shows that are being made by the storytellers. But that's just one aspect. We are here discussing things like funding and access to finance being a challenge for storytellers and the creative industry. And from our vantage point, this is very true. As Netflix, we've been on the continent now for about 7 years, since 2016. We've only actively started producing local content in the last 3 years. Hard to believe, but it's just 2020. If you remember Queen Sona, our first African original, came out in 2020. So we've been actively putting our money where our mouth is. But this can't happen. The Honorable Mia Motley made a point yesterday, and she said that it's impossible for a single entity, a single demographic, a single individual or company to make a difference if there isn't a handshake and all stakeholders within the ecosystem. Another word that we've heard over and over, ecosystem, ecosystem, ecosystem. Things have to work together. So yes, there is an increasing amount of attention on creative industries, and I'm happy to see the room is filling up because it kind of felt like creative industry and everybody went to have lunch, but good to see everyone is back now. Yeah. But seriously, there needs to be a mainstreaming and a focus on creative industries, film and TV, music, fashion, in a way that mainstreaming has happened for sectors like agriculture, has happened for oil and gas, the extractives, because the size of the opportunity in this sector, it crosses physical boundaries. Right. I will give you a case in point. As Netflix alone, we recently published a socioeconomic impact report, and we found that we have invested in excess of 175 million in films and TV shows, reality, documentaries, since we came into the sub-Saharan Africa region. What you don't see in that number is the 12,000 jobs, 12,000 livelihoods that are being sustained. That number also doesn't maybe show you the over $250 million contribution to GDP and the tax revenues that government derives. So if Netflix as a single entity investing in that sector is able to have that sort of impact, imagine what a coalition of content creators and production companies and big international studios can do if given the opportunity. So the building blocks have to be put in place, not just the structural challenges, but also the policy infrastructure, as I like to say. Case in point, creative industry professionals and storytellers can now access loans, for instance, to finance their films. But on what terms are they accessing those loans? What are interest rates like? Why does a storyteller or filmmaker have to mortgage their personal house to put a story on screen? Are we treating intellectual property and stories the same way we're treating traditional brick and mortar assets? It's chalk and cheese, completely different. So to really harness that opportunity and make it possible for people sitting in Iceland and India to watch stories out of Nigeria and Ghana and Africa, we need to put all those things together. So storytellers telling their stories, investors in the media and entertainment space like Netflix, governments putting infrastructure together, financiers who fill this room today, understanding that the storytelling industry is different, but the size of the opportunity, it's really massive.
Oh, excellent. Really excellent. Yeah. Now, she talked about killer interest rates. And there is enough documentation about creatives, finding it hard to access loans because they're afraid. They want to scale up their business. But there is a real scare out there. And she mentioned it. For you at FEDA, and you mentioned that 1 billion you're going to be doling out, and that's exciting news. But for you, what do you think creatives should be doing more in the area of accessing loans? Where do we go, for instance, if we've come to FEDA so many times, we want to do something else? What should they do from a finance point of view?
Thank you very much. Thank you. I think that's a key question. And the financing, how do we structure it? We were just having the conversation. The beautiful thing at FEDA and at Afrixim in general is you'll find that we like to offer tailor-made solution to our customers. So, you know, when you come to FEDA, I'm not going to say, hey, this is what I sell, this is how much it costs, take it. We look at the situation on a case-by-case basis. Okay. You know, investment may seem like a very cold business, but it starts with meeting people, understanding who they are, believing in them, having that conversation, that knowledge, and we try to make tailor-made solution. The reason why FEDA was such an important tool is that we're not like a bank, meaning that we are co-investors with our partners. So it means that if the project works very well, we're very happy, we have the impact that we seek and we make a return together. If the project doesn't do well, we lose together. So we're very much aligned. Another very different thing, so we are not just offering debt, we're offering equity. It's very different. So I'm saying I'm going to be a partner. You used to own 100% of the business. Now maybe it's going to be 50-50 or 51-49. And I win when you win, I lose when you lose. And by the way, I'm not just an investor. We're going to work on the plan together because beyond the money, I think that you mentioned Afrixim connecting you to the textile industry in Portugal. Beyond the money, there's also a lot of value that you can bring in terms of connecting people with service providers, with distribution companies, with different things. And we believe that we can do that. So that's very important. I think that another thing that people have to understand is for investors, investing into one creative project is risky because as much as the story might be strong writing, very good acting, good production, there is an element that you don't necessarily control, which is, are people going to like it? Are they going to watch it? Is Netflix going to like it? Are they going to put it forward so that it's viewed? Am I going to recoup the money that I put? So more and more, what we try to do at FEDA is to have a vehicle where the way I can get my investors comfortable with it is to say, we're not just going to invest in the production of Mo or in the music catalog of my friend over here. We're going to have like a catalog of different projects. And this is where you have a little bit of a portfolio approach where you accept, somebody said it earlier this morning, you accept that some project may not reach the success that you hope for, but you know that some will, and that on average you will be okay. And I think that that's something that Professor Rama tells us often we have to be bold, we have to do things, and we have to know how much we can afford to lose, but the most important thing is in the long term is to be ahead. So that's what I would recommend, is to have a portfolio approach, to come to partners that are at risk with you, and it's not, you shouldn't be betting your house. Those risks can be structured in a way that they are institutional risk, and that's what we're offering at FEDA. That's what's exciting, and the bank will be helping us where the money that we have FEDA at the moment is a $700 million fund, but obviously our mother organization, AfricSim, is supporting with something that can really transform the industry, I believe. So.
That's fantastic news. Mo, I'm coming to you. One of the things that you keep humping about is our potentials, that our potentials have not been fully realized. Recently, you talked about it at a conference in Los Angeles. When you say that our potentials have not been realized, what exactly do you mean? Because if you listen to the creatives, especially those in the music industry, it looks like we've gone really, really far. So which potential are you talking about?
Well, how many blockbusters have we made? We haven't made any yet. And if we keep putting ourselves in this bubble and thinking that, oh, I just made a movie last week that made 50 million naira, then, hello, I mean, I have some stats here and I keep looking at them. The global box office in America in 2022 was $26 billion. China, 4.3 billion. Europe, Middle East, 7.1 billion. Do you want to know what Africa is? $15 million.
Oops.
It doesn't make sense with the population and the culture. People, we have to find a way to package the culture and monetize the culture and sell the culture.
Why haven't we done it?
Well, this is the big question. I keep getting invited to speak at events around the world, and I'm a little bit tired of speaking. Like, I'm at a point of where I'm saying, I am tired. Can we just actually get to whereby we're looking at the practical solutions to there being a blockbuster that comes from our continent? I mean, we have the resources. We have the funding. Why aren't we doing it? Well, we are talking. So by the time, I'm sure that when Professor Rama does the next presentation, and we saw all the beautiful images yesterday of all the things they've invested in, we're going to see a blockbuster that the world has seen. We have the stories. We just have to basically organize ourselves into a position of whereby we take the practical steps to make it happen.
Are we individually being too individualistic, nationalistic?
I think we're being small-minded.
Okay.
And I think also what the biggest challenge we have in Africa is that, with all due respect to governments and things, you know, the creative sector is seen in most cases as the ministry that is the ministry for, you know, like, if you just need to put someone there. Like, okay, it's not really important. You know, that guy that helped me on my campaign or whatever, just give him the job. It doesn't work that way.
That's a fact.
That person needs to have the necessary skills to understand what we need to do to build the industry. Do they understand production? Do they understand storytelling? Do they understand distribution? Do they understand monetization? Do they understand that, you know, media is so powerful? It changes everything. What we wear, who we are, what we say. But we're not using it to our advantage as a continent. How many African restaurants do we see in the world? There's a Chinese restaurant everywhere in the world. There's Indian restaurants everywhere in the world. There's Italian. I'm not saying we don't have the odd Nigerian restaurant, but please, we can do better. So we are just not looking. Heidi and I were eating plantain chips yesterday. I said, if I was not doing this business I'm doing, I would actually just go and meet Walker Crisps and say, listen, we need to start exporting and making plantain chips. Because it was delicious. I had to say to the guy at the hotel, where do you guys get this particular brand from? We have plantain. We're not even selling it on a massive scale. The Jollof War is a war that we're not doing anything about. It should be a war in the supermarkets, in Tesco's and Sainsbury's. So I don't know what we're doing about anything, because all we seem to do is talk about it. So can we please start acting on what we do. I want to act on making a global blockbuster that the entire world is going to watch. That is my obsession, and I'm going to do it. And we have started, and we're going to make it happen.
And if you're an investor in this room, and you know Mo Abudu's story, you know she will do it.
Amen.
And so this is the time to invest in
So
it.
just to say that,
Yeah.
we are going to do it.
Yeah.
It's really just about the building blocks. You build a house, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got to lay the foundation. You've got to do everything. It is the same with intellectual property. We've got to treat it with the same respect. Writing a story takes time. Some of our storytellers are writing, they're telling me I'm making a film. And 2 weeks later, they've made the film. I'm like, wow, that was quick. So, I mean, you meet people in the rest of the world that it takes time to write. It takes time to produce. It takes time to cast. We need to do it properly. I've been asked just because we are talking. I said, at least 2 years to be able to say you're going to do it properly. I said, if anyone comes to you and says less, they're robbing you. They're going to take your money and they're going to run. So it takes time to produce these stories, but we will do it. We're gonna put it up on that screen real soon. Prof, I promise you.
Amen.
Now, I mean, for you at Netflix, I'll come to you very soon because you need to tell us what you like. When you see the story, what tells you that this is it? I'll come to you in a bit. But Mo mentioned something very profound, preserving our culture. How are we telling our cultural stories, our heritage? For you in the music industry, I mean, when you hear an African song, you talked about the drum, you can just tell this is Africa. How have we managed to preserve this culture by not losing it completely? But of course, there are some modernization to it. How have you done it in the music industry?
That's a hard question, and simply because music always moves, right? Now we're calling it Afrobeat, but when I was growing up, my parents played Congo music. Then there's one time it was Afro Juju, then there was, just different genres. It keeps moving, but you see, what is unique about our music is us. That's the only thing that's unique. And I think even with film, as you were talking about that, the real problem is that we have to do us, but we have to do us globally. And I really want to jump on what she said because I'm also doing film stuff, just around production. And I find that the real problem is this. The most watched show on Netflix, Shola, is what?
Film or TV series.
The
You have
biggest
something like
TV series.
Squid Game from Korea.
Squid
It
Games.
was
Squid
best
Games.
film.
Squid Games is the most watched show on Netflix. First, it was in Korean, right? And with subtitles. And it was a blockbuster around the world. Why? They were originally Korean, but they had world-class production. So I would say that even with music, what changed with music is that before, when you were recording in a band, you'd go to a big place like this, getting it out 500 hours and hoping to get the right take. Now you open a laptop, say what you want to, get the things choreographed. And so everyone has a mobile studio. So the more ubiquitous these things are, the more the quality raises. The reason why a film production is not where it is because there aren't enough production facilities to do the qualitative stuff that needs to be done. Because once you see once the bar of production is raised, everything goes with it. So there's nothing to change. Like what most things, don't change any story, but let us see a better story. Let's not see when you shoot somebody, then he dies in slow motion. That takes those are the problems that we're having, right?
Yeah.
So even with music, what has really kept us going is that it is now easy to have access to qualitative production.
Right.
And in a way, we do not need as much tax incentives and policy and all these other things as film. But what is going to take us to the next level is how we ensure that distribution, local distribution, is in our hands. Because trust me, 80% of that revenue that you're hearing is not in this land, it's in another land. And so what we need is to keep it internally, and that means we need to get that kind of funding. And the last thing I want to say around the funding part, which is really critical, is that intellectual property is now as valuable as real estate property, if not. Apple is the most valuable, it's an economy, it's basically it's more monetized than America today. And what are they selling? Software. It's nothing physical anymore. So even with the banks and how you guys think about how you take collateral and etc., the collateral is actually the real estate collateral. Sorry, is the intellectual property.
It's the story.
collateral. And that means that if I did 1 million streams with one movie, then why don't you give money to do 2 million streams? And why don't you hold that, the revenue streams as collateral so I can go out and be creative?
Yeah.
That's all we need.
Marlene, does that make sense to you?
Well, absolutely. That's that's the approach that we are using. I always say what we want to do is create a vehicle. We want a creative talent. And when I say creative talent, I think that most it is very important. We're thinking about, in the case of film, writing. We're thinking about production, distribution capability. So it's a full value chain, if we will. And what I say is, you bring in that, we'll bring in the money, other things, our relationship, the know-how, we'll get the best lawyers in IP, we'll work with government when IP laws need to be strengthened and protected. I think that there's a lot to be done even within the AFCFTA to ensure that that includes IPs, that people are protected. When it comes to music, I still hear musicians saying, I have a concert here, but I'm not sure I'm going to get my visa. That should go away. People should be able to go and do spectacle and produce. That's a way that we integrate with each other. You mentioned it very well. We need to have artists collaborating, create that momentum. That's what's happening in the US and in Europe. We need to do that. It's starting to happen on an individual basis. We need to push that. So for me, it's very clear that I write the check. They bring the talent. The talent can be monetized today in many different ways, whether it's selling at festivals, selling to Netflix, streaming ourselves on our own platforms. There's so many different ways, and even getting into the secondary industries of animes and things like that. So there's a lot, and so we are very clear on that.
Right.
Everybody plays their part.
Okay. Now, earlier, Shola talked about policies. Are the policies favorable for the fashion industry, Aisha?
So, the thing is, when the industry itself is quite young or not as structured, how does one even advocate for the industry? I believe that the initiatives, for example, the Creative Arts Council, we need to guard with our lives and not politicize it. Let's understand that somebody needs to be there, or somebody needs to be there advocating for certain industries that is quite new. It's been seen as entertainment, or just, the number of times we've been asked to stage a fashion show as entertainment, as a serious event. Listen, it's a slap in the face. Not because they want to insult the industry. It's when people are not aware, or they are not aware of how to monetize this industry, or see it as an avenue for job creation and wealth building as a nation. You would have instances where there aren't strict policies actually working in favor of the industry. So I know we like to talk about the money issue, and everybody, it's good. Let's throw money at the different industries, but me about building it in the first place. Even when you go to FEDA and you're trying to make a business case, you need to show that the numbers make sense. This thing I'm bringing before you, it's viable. And we are constantly looking outside of the continent for, knocking on people's doors, accept us, like our fashion, like our art, like our movies. But homegrown, how many are we on the continent? Over 1 billion, right? But I'm not sure how many people have access to Netflix, right? But if they did, imagine if that ecosystem where more people have access to Netflix, or even access to some of the goods and services we provide. How are we trading amongst ourselves that I can make my millions even on the continent? And then we're talking to the West. We can back. We are actually peers, speaking on a certain level. So it's the fundamentals need to be strong. The foundations need to be strong. The building blocks need to be strong. Building structure into the industry. The policymakers understand that this industry, we cannot sleep on it. So how are we partnering with the Creative Arts Council and not seeing it as, just a bit of fluff? But so that's my school of thought. I guess that's why I'm coming from the left side. Let's trade amongst ourselves. Let's make the numbers, and then we hold power and we hold space.
Absolutely. Now, in telling us how Netflix chooses its partners, tell us what you look out for in a story, for instance, because Mo is very passionate about the story. I mean, she talks about this, writing a story for 2 months, and then the next minute they are shooting a movie. What do you look out for?
It's very simple. It's one word: authenticity. Squid Game, like Audu pointed out, was very successful all around the world. It was a story told entirely in the local language of the country it came from, Korean. We invest in subtitling, dubbing, and subbing to make it possible for people to connect with stories on our service, no matter what part of the world they may be from. Right now, I think we have something like 38 different languages that are supported on Netflix. Wow. So whether it's a story like Anukulakbo that's told in Yoruba, or Blood Sisters from Mo, who's on this stage with me, which, by the way, hits the top 10 in 11 different countries outside of Nigeria. And there were indigenous languages, there was Pidgin English spoken in it. But what people connected with was the authenticity, that we were not writing a story or telling a story with the intention of bringing on board US viewers. No. Mo and her organization was telling a story authentic to Nigeria and relatable to Nigerians. And I tell you, all around the world, people can smell authenticity. So no matter what language you're telling it in, they will key into it. Mo also made a point about it's quite hard to hit box office success. I'll tell you the reason why. There's 1,600 screens, cinemas, across the whole of Africa. The US alone has in excess of 44,000. So there's a job for our governments to do. You need enough to ask the banks to invest, to ask the Netflixes of this world to invest, to ask Mo to invest our money, and Audu. We have to put our money where our mouth is as governments. And this means building capacity, building the physical infrastructure, building the sets that are required to put these big shows on. You need to make it attractive. Okay, we understand that it's impossible for government to solve every single problem. And we do know that in Ghana, for instance, over 90% of the jobs are actually in the private sector, Absolutely. Not government. Yeah. But what we're saying is mainstream the industry, finance the industry. Countries like South Africa have cottoned on to something. They created a film incentive. And that's a facility that allows big investors in film and TV to recoup some of their money, get like a cash rebate. Right. If we put this in place, and there's a missing middle, apart from South Africa, Morocco is the only other country that has this on the continent. If you make it attractive and viable for big investors in film to come to your local ecosystem and invest in film, they'll create jobs. They will tell that story to the world. Streaming services represent an untapped opportunity. And yes, like you said, it is really hard for many Africans to be able to get the broadband they need, for instance, to view Netflix. But what the opportunity is an economic one. It's giving access to a global market to people like Mo and Audu. It's making it possible for viewers at other sides of the world to see how good a script has been written, how great a story has been told, and want to work with and invest in that person.
All right. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we have to end it here. But I have to say a big thank you to my panelists this afternoon because they provided so many perspectives and insights. And I believe that we'll have a lot to take away from this conversation. Thank you very much.
Can I make one request, please?
Yes.
Can we please take a picture with Prof?
Okay, Prof. Prof would like to take a picture with you. But thank you, Marlene, Shola, Aisha, Audu, and Mo. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
That was Unleashing the Potential of the Africa's Creative Economy for Shared Prosperity. Remember, Canex will be hosting B2B events at the next IATF 2023, taking place in Cairo from 9th to the 15th. President Orama, I'm sure all of these people, and hopefully all of you people, will